Alrighty, we're live. So thanks for joining me, Danielle. Can you start by talking a little bit about your background, where you grew up, and just how you grew up, and anything else you want to share?
Yeah, of course. And thanks for having me, Shanjal. This is really exciting and really fun to be a part of. But to answer your question, where I grew up and a little background is I live in Altadena, California, which is 20 minutes from LA, California. So I've always been here. I grew up here in Altadena, went to high school out here. And then I went to Xavier for undergrad in 2004 to 2008. So the fun, crazy years, as I would think of it. And that's when I studied psychology. I originally went to Xavier for pre-med. I was supposed to be a pediatrician. And then I took a chemistry course and I was like, whoa, I'm not cut out for that. And then I decided, let me do psychology pre-med, hoping it wouldn't be as heavy chemistry. And lo and behold, it's like the exact same thing. And then I realized if chemistry isn't my thing or physics isn't my thing, then I really need to figure out what is. So I ended up just focusing on psychology as a whole. And then I got a minor in sociology and business administration. And then after that, after I graduated, I went over and did a master's and got a master's in industrial and organizational psychology. And so that's like the educational background. One of the things was when I was doing my master's, I took a consumer psychology course, basically looking at why people buy what they buy. Say it compared, say, people who buy iPhones to those who buy Androids, and really figuring out purchasing behavior, in group out group bias kind of thing. And with that, that's when I realized, dang it, I should have studied more of a business marketing side of everything, because those are the courses I really enjoyed. And after that, I started working in a couple marketing agencies and really learning that side of business and less of psychology. But I was able to throw bits and pieces of psychology into a lot of the marketing that I did.
Perfect. So can you tell me, we'll talk about your graduate program and things, but first, can you tell me a little bit about your Xavier experience? Just how were you as a student, what organizations you might have been involved with, or anything about the Xavier experience?
Yeah, Xavier was totally different from high school in LA. And also, I guess I have to preface that by saying I was very sheltered as a kid, in the sense of I had an older sister who got to kind of live the wild child life. And so I was very sheltered. And I originally thought I was going to probably go to a school either on the West Coast or more Midwest, like something in, I wanted to go to some like school in Oregon, and then I wanted to go to a school in Denver, and then it just didn't work out. But Xavier was a fun fit. But when I got there, the transition from, hey, city LA life to not so city was very different. But then it became really fun, because LA city life can be very, everybody's about themselves kind of thing. Whereas down in New Orleans, it was like, oh my God, people actually look at you when you walk, when they say like hi when you walk down the street. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. No one in LA ever does that. So that was fun. Going to school where no one's really monitoring what you're doing, like you have the freedom to just go in and out as you please. You just have to get your work done. That was rough, because I was so used to having, like, say a mom say, is your work done? Did you get this finished? And then at college, no one does that. So Xavier was really great in the sense that I had a lot of really good friends around me to kind of help me and kind of steer me in the right direction so I could get things done when I wasn't used to it. And then it became really cool just to see things like sororities and fraternities, to really be around so many Black people, because I wasn't always around that. I mean, don't get me saying like I didn't have that out here, because I do, but to be finally the majority, it was like, oh my God, this feels really, really nice. So Xavier was a great place for me to end up for college.
Cool. Alrighty. So the main reason we have you here is I'm here to talk about your food blog, your food
Awesome.
website that you have. So can you tell me what pinpointed you to want to start your blog, and just tell me about that whole process of getting started with that?
Okay. So I've heard from some like entrepreneurs, either in TED Talks or through books. And when you're doing certain jobs that you're kind of like, what am I doing here? You're trying to figure out what to do with your life after college, and then after you've been working for a while. One of the entrepreneurs on one of these talks was saying something like, whatever you think about the most, you should really try and turn that into a career. And I was like, ooh, I think about Leonardo DiCaprio all day. How can I make that into a career? And it wouldn't work out. But then I was like, after him, the next thing I tend to think about is restaurants. I've always grown up going to restaurants. They tended to be some sort of like positive affirmation or a type of reward for either like reading a ton of books in school. I would get like a Pizza Hut coupon or all these different things. So I've always loved restaurants. And so with that, I was like, let me see if I can really turn this into something. There's no real loss of me trying to make a blog out of it because I'm always in these restaurants anyway. And then if it doesn't work out, I'll just keep eating. Like, it doesn't really matter to me. I love it that much. So with that thought, I was like, let me try and parlay this into something and see what it could turn into. And then that's really where it came about.
Okay, cool. So when did you start your blog? What year?
I started it December 21st, 2014. So just over 2 years now.
Okay. Can you tell me a little bit about like how's your blog going so far? How has it been like received in the LA dining market, I guess I'll say.
It's a cool way.
Just tell me a little bit how it's been received so far. Maybe tell me a little bit about your blog stats. Like, did you start with nobody reading it and now you have a really good readership, or what's your?
Yeah. So when I started, the focus was just content creation. So making sure I had restaurants on the website. And in the beginning, I was just going to restaurants, taking photos in the restaurant, and you always get like people staring at you, kind of like, what is this broad doing? And I would just take those photos, edit them at night, and write a review about it to basically be like an independent version of, say, Eater magazine or Bon Appetit magazine or anything like that. I just wanted to have my own control over everything. And so with that, of course, started at zero. I really had a bunch of friends and Facebook followers who were like, yeah, I'll totally support you on this. They would follow me on Instagram and things like that. And then over maybe a couple weeks, it was just trying to figure out how to get people to see the blog itself. So it became a lot of engagement on social media or Instagram, or really connecting with people who read things like Eater and seeing what they were interested in, what they were following, and then trying to parlay them over to my site. So it's a lot of guerrilla, like grunt work, being like really having to do a ton of like the bottom of the barrel work, which is kind of like the hustle to it all. You have to do it. So with that, of course, it grew, and now it's getting a lot stronger. I'm finding more people are going to the site more recently, and it seems to be a lot of people are really trying to find places to eat in LA that give an honest review of what the food is like, and not just saying, hey, this is good, you should go eat it. A lot of it's like, why is it good? Why should I go spend my money there? Because I think when it comes to eating out, a lot of people don't want to spend money on something that's not going to be good. Like, why waste my hard-earned money on something that sucks? So most people come to me because they're looking to hear me say if it's good or if it's not. And if that's not that great, what's an alternative to it? And so the readership is growing a lot. It seems like it's taking off a bit more now recently since January, which is always a fun thing to say. And the social media side of it is a lot of work, but that's growing along pretty steadily too. So I'm happy.
Cool. Did you, speaking of social media, was it kind of like a learning curve for you, just with the blog and social media and everything? Because, you do have a background in psychology and you didn't really get that education background. So a lot of it was, I'm assuming a lot of it was, learning on the job with different things. Can you talk a little bit about your social media part of it?
Yeah. So the social media side was harder than the web development and harder than the blog, the content creation side. Like, I can write a blog post and be fine. I can edit photos and be fine. But trying to figure out how to convince people who are following this page to then come over to my page was difficult. So it became a lot of reading other people's blogs to see what type of tips they have on how to grow a social media following, reading some popular books by marketers already. So a lot of it was, at this time I was working, I had a full-time job. So a lot of it was me up at like 10 o'clock at night reading somebody's book on how to grow. And a great one is called Instagram Power. And I forget what the guy's name is, but he really lays out a lot of creative ways to really engage with other people and make relationships with other people so that you have realistically more friends as followers than just numbers of people following you who don't engage with you. Because at the end of the day, I don't really necessarily want somebody just to only say, oh my God, that plate looks great. I need people who say things like, I went to that restaurant because of you. And that's more important to me. So his book, or a couple other people on their blogs or their YouTube channels, really outline certain ways to do that, whether it's finding people in your area, your city specifically, who eat at certain restaurants and then engaging with them, or offering contests of giveaways so people can eat out the same way that I eat out, which was really something that I'd like to do, that I need to do more of again. It's just time's gotten really kind of crazy. So the social media side was definitely a learning curve that I think if I had taken a couple business courses, might have been easier. I would have had a pre-leg up going into it. But the good thing about the internet now is there's so many places to get the information currently if you don't already have it. It's going to take time though. That's the only problem.
Okay, cool. So since you did study psychology in undergrad, can you talk a little bit about what advice you might give to, I feel like our generation, we have a lot of people that go to college for one thing, and then like that passion might not hit them until they're 26, 27 after they've gotten a degree, which has happened to me too. So can you speak a little bit about the process of wanting to move into your passion, even if it might be different from what you studied and spent money on and, that type of thing?
That's such a sad, hard question because you spend so much money. So yeah, okay. So if I went to undergrad and grad school and now I have a student loan that for some reason will never go away, that's a pure indicator of I went to school for one thing and then I found what I love, which is follow my gut. And in no way do I bash education, but I do wish I would have taken some time in between grad school and my undergrad and grad school to figure out my passion. So if you do have the time to take a break, I would probably say take that break and then go in the workforce for a little bit and really figure out yourself and what you want, if you have that option. If you don't, then it sucks to say it's a tough process, because then you really got to come to terms with the fact that you probably spent a lot of money on a degree that you can only incorporate into your passion. When it comes to actually figuring out what it is, I would go back to the idea of whatever you spend the majority of your time thinking about. If you could turn that into something, then you'd probably be the happiest in the long run. I'd focus a lot more on the long term of things than the short term. So to say, when I first started the blog from December 2014 to say January 2017, that was the passion and the hustle hard point, where you're really just doing a lot of overtime work trying to make things happen. So in my head, I would think whatever you spend the most time thinking about, try and figure out a way that you can create something from it, regardless of what other people say. Get past the idea of you went to school for something, you have to stick with that. It's okay to change your mind and move on to something else, even if you feel like you're 30 or 40, because I'm 30. And in my head, I should have been a doctor by now, but I don't want to be. So it's okay to move on from whatever you told other people you were going to do and what you spent money on, and then just to explore as much as possible. Like if you have the opportunity and the flexibility to really run with whatever makes you happy, I would say just run with it and see where it can go. Worst case scenario, you go back to what you had before and then you try again.
Okay. Did you, so as of right now, are you still working outside of your website, or is it kind of like your full-time thing now?
Right now it's full-time. So I was working at a newspaper. It started from September 2013 to maybe about 2 months ago. And to be honest, I'm the type of person who wants to work a lot because I need that kind of security. So I would still be working there if I could have, but I got laid off. And I kind of think that was a bit of the universe saying like, you need to be laid off so you can focus on this. At least that's what I'm hoping the universe is saying, so that I can focus on this more. But yeah, before that I was working like say my 9 to 5. I'd go to a restaurant right after work and then blog until about 2 a.m. and then repeat. But now that I have all this free time, I can get so much more done and I can check out so many more places. So I'm trying to take it as a very positive thing. And thankfully money does come in through it. So I'm trying to figure out new ways to make even more come through it too. So it's a fun, scary place.
Yo, can you talk a little bit about monetizing? Like
Yeah.
what you've done to monetize your blog? You know, a lot of people start a blog and it's just, I just want to tell my story or whatever, but there's plenty of ways to actually, you know, make money from it. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So when I started, I didn't want to have any ads on it. I wanted it to just be kind of like a free space. And then I would tackle that beast a little bit later. And so right now I'm in the place where I'm starting to incorporate ads. But prior to, which is, I think the most traditional way that people think about making money from blogs is on-site advertising, which is a great passive income for it. But what I wanted to do is really focus on building the site first. So passive ads are coming next. But what I was doing prior to that was there would be a ton of, what's it called? Food-based apps that are looking for content. And if you ever Google a restaurant through like a popular app that you use and you see a ton of photos come up about it, people were coming to me saying, we need photos. They can't hire a full-time staff person. So they would say, hey, can I pay you X amount for this many photos? And then they would just keep renewing. So a lot of times what I was doing was I would work with a lot of brand new apps that come out in the market and they need photos for their app itself. So people have something to reference. So if I have, I think at this point, like maybe like 6,000 photos, like of LA, some Mexico, Philippines, and a bunch of other places, I would literally just send them all these photos, which was really, really fun because it's like, oh, I already took these, go ahead and use it. Or now I have a couple licensing deals with websites who are like, can we host your photos or your blog content about each dish and then just keep it on our website and pay you like a monthly rate for it. So that's another way. And then I've been getting some more product reviews. So say somebody is like, I just made this ham, or sorry, like a ham company would be like, can you talk about our ham, cook it, and then tell people whether it's good or not. And so then I'll make it and then be like, this was the best ham on the planet, if it really was, which it was. And then they pay off for that. So there's a couple different ways. And the fun thing is you can always hit up places and say, this is something that I do. So if I just released a music video, like a parody music video, and I incorporated some brands within it and even had like a magazine in it. So that's another way that I can build money from it. And so I'm trying to do a couple more. It's a lot more of a difficult process than I thought it would be to make a music video. But thankfully, there's time that I have now to really do it. So there's a couple different ways that I monetize it.
Perfect. Alrighty. So going back to psychology just a little bit, do you use any skills you think you learned in psychology in your food blogging now, or in the ways, you know, some of the psychology, like just the thought processes of the way people eat or anything like that? Do you still use any of those?
Yeah, and sometimes I think it might come off a little negative. The positive first, I would say, is when I started the branding of my blog, I used a lot of psychology. So I was like, well, is there psychology behind certain colors? And if so, which one should I go towards? So I realized orange and yellow and red tend to incite hunger in a lot of people. So that's why I went more with the orange color. I was originally going to go with red, but I noticed a lot of people had red logos. So I wanted to stay away from that. So mine would stand out a bit more. So psychology of color really helped. And I know there's like a whole website behind that that helps with that as well. There were a couple times where I was doing a study to see why people buy certain things. For instance, I started looking at why a person would spend, how much people would spend on coffee, especially if you can't sit down in the restaurant. So what's the maximum you would spend for a to-go cup of coffee? And really that was looking at, say, I've seen some places that charge $7 for a 12-ounce cup of coffee, but you can stay in the inside the coffee shop for like 8 hours. And that would make sense versus a coffee stand that would sell the exact same amount of coffee, same size, same price, but you can't stay in there. So I was trying to see what people would justify as okay for their dollar versus what wasn't. And then nowadays, with a lot of the trends going on in hashtag food porn, I'm really looking at why people are doing it. So say if you take the unicorn frappuccino, for example, I realize a lot of people are photographing this thing, but at the same time, they're saying the drink wasn't good. So they're spending, say, $5 to $6 on a drink that isn't good. What's the reason behind that? And that's what I'm looking at figuring out right now is it really just to be in group with everybody who's posting this photo so you can feel kind of included with it? And if you're not feeling included, how do you feel when you're on the outside of it? Are you okay? Does it matter? Does FOMO really exist anymore, especially in food photography? And that's something I have my own opinion about, where I'm like, I don't really care about a unicorn frappuccino if you say it's not good, but I want to see other people's opinions on that and what they think about something like that. Because the unicorn frappuccino is one thing, and like 6 months there's going to be another thing, and so on and so forth. So I kind of want to get an understanding of what some people's opinions are when it comes to something like that.
Okay. So what are some things that, now we're going to talk about food.
Okay.
Food.
My fave.
So what do you what do you enjoy about the Los Angeles food scene? Is it just tell me what is it about the Los Angeles food scene that you like?
It's weird because I think every city has their own style of food, but I think when most people think of LA food, they probably think tacos, and that's a big deal about it, but there's so many other types of food within LA. So there's always an opportunity to explore something new, whether it be in style of food or price. So you can really go up on a ladder from, say, a taco truck all the way down to a restaurant within like the Four Seasons or such. And I love the ability to explore all of that. And then there's gonna be a little bit of a bias that I love that the weather is so convenient to allow you to explore all of that. For instance, I see some friends who live in New York and it's always raining and it's always gloomy. And I'm like, that sucks for you because it's so sunny out here, And so the ability to really have great weather around the exploration of so many different types of food is really fun. And it's a bit of a convenience, as I said already, but that makes me really, really happy out here. But then when August comes around and it's going to be like 112 degrees, then I'm like, we'll see how often I go out. So, yeah.
Okay. So what has been your favorite meal that you've had in the last year out?
Anywhere?
Yeah.
Anywhere.
Well, I probably would say in Los Angeles, but if it's anywhere, you can do that too.
Okay. Let's say we'll do both. If it's in LA and then one last question. If it's a meal, does that mean it can be anything I've eaten, right?
Anything you've eaten.
Anything I've eaten. Yeah. Okay. If it's in LA, then it's going to be an ice cream shop called Gelatos that I made a music video off of. And it's so crazy to say this ice cream is my favorite, but this ice cream shop is run by a El Salvadorian family, and they just have extremely exotic flavors. So growing up, I've been used to like say cookie dough and pistachio would be considered exotic, but this place has all natural ice creams made straight from fruit, and it's flavors like mame or lucuma, which I've never in my life heard of. And then when you actually try this fruit itself and then see how they add like milk and cream to it and how it just has a different flavor from anything I've ever tasted, I'm like, this blows my mind. This is exciting. They're about 30 minutes away north of me, so it's a little bit of a drive. But if we're talking like anywhere, the best food I had was at I got to write about a restaurant called Il Becco at the Four Seasons in Mexico City, and they have like every single plate that comes out of their kitchen is amazing. Like they could serve you peanuts and you're like, these are the best peanuts I've ever had, because they really take time to make cuisine an experience, and every point that a hand touches an ingredient, you can tell there's care involved with it. So from the appetizer to the dessert, Il Becco and the Four Seasons at Mexico City was the best that I've ever had.
Okay, cool. So do you miss the cuisine of New Orleans a little bit, or did you really explore it while you were here as much as you would have liked to? Or is 2017 Danielle a little envious of 2008 Danielle that didn't do as much with food in New Orleans? What do you think about the New Orleans cuisine?
The last statement was exactly it. So when I was in New Orleans, I loved food and I ate, but I didn't appreciate it and I didn't explore it as much as I should have. So when I would eat when I was there, I was usually just in the cafeteria. And when I was in the cafeteria, it was always the exact same meal, same cheeseburger and fries, and a Dr. Pepper all day, every day. Don't get me wrong, I went to like Cafe Du Monde and a couple places here and there, but nothing to the point that I really explored it as I would have now. So if it was me today in New Orleans, like I was living out there, oh my God, I'd be even more in sweatpants every day because I'm just eating everything. So there is a sadness that I have when I look back and I'm like, man, I didn't explore as I should have, you know, or I didn't appreciate it as I should have, which I regret. However, I'm not dead yet. So that means there is still time for me to go back and really get acquainted with it in a sense. And at that rate, I'm hoping if like God willing, I could go either later this year or mid next year and just spend a week with the opportunity just to do that alone, you know, just to really hit the ground in some flip-flops, finding every place, taking photos and really saying, this is what's amazing in New Orleans, and getting people's like their own perspective on their favorite places in New Orleans, and then going there and like telling other people outside the city where they should go.
Okay. Are you, do you have, from your experience in New Orleans, do you have any favorite spots that you remember, like outside of Cafe Du Monde, or not really? You didn't really explore it?
I really didn't, and that's why I'm like, Danielle, what were you doing? You know what I mean? Like, that's like why it's so strange. And I think about it, I'm like, where was I? Like, what was I doing? Like, I know I didn't have a car, so there was that limitation. But in the same right, if I didn't have a car here today, I would have like busted, you know, and granted Uber wasn't around back then, but like I really didn't eat out that much. Or if I did eat out, they were all at chains, you know, like not like a mom and pop place that would be beautiful to explore out there. So that's very, very disheartening to have to tell you. I feel so bad, but that's the truth. And that's the honest of how I was. I just didn't go anywhere. But now today, oh girl, I'd be everywhere right now.
Alrighty. So that was my last question. Do you have any other anything else you want to add about anything?
I would definitely say if somebody's kind of considering doing something that's opposite of what they told everybody and their mother they were going to do with their life, or they went to school and spent a ton of money on, I would say just try it. You know, it may not be easy, or let me rephrase that. It won't be easy, but like, when I look at me doing this, I'm so happy. Like, this is the most happy that I think I've ever been. And there's some bad parts and some difficult parts that come to starting to create something that either you've never done before or you don't really know anybody who's done before to help you along the way. But if you look at it with the eye of longevity, and your hope is that you can do this for the rest of your life, I would at least give it a shot, give it like a 3-year period, 4 years, and really just go for it and see what happens, because it could take off and you could be the best at it. And if it doesn't, then you gave it a try, and then you can always just come right back. I'd rather be like 70 years old saying I tried it and it didn't work, but I gave it my all, than 70 years old wishing I had done it.
Okay, cool. Thank you, Danielle. I'm going to stop the broadcast, but I still want to talk to you.
Sounds good.
I hope it doesn't cut us off, but I'm going to. But hold on.
Why'd you cut us out?
Yeah, no. If it does, I'll try to call you back. All right.
Okay, sounds good.